The text message arrived with the mundane chime of any other notification, a stark contrast to the explosion it detonated in my life. I was between customers at my boutique, discussing fabric swatches, when my phone lit up. "I'm leaving you and moving to Miami with my 20-year-old girlfriend. I've already emptied our joint account, ha ha." 12 years of marriage, nuked with a text message and a triumphant juvenile ha ha. My hands, I noted with a strange detachment, didn't shake as I read it. My voice remained steady, even cheerful, as I helped Mrs. Peterson select a silk scarf, carefully wrapping her purchase in our signature silver paper. The only outward sign that my world had just been seismically altered was a slight, almost imperceptible tightening around my eyes, a subtle bracing against an impact I had, in many ways, already anticipated. I waited until Mrs. Peterson left, the bell above the door tinkling merrily, before I allowed myself to truly process his words. Mark, my husband of over a decade, the man I had built a life with, was gone, or so he thought, leaving a trail of digital cruelty in his wake. He was probably gloating, imagining my devastation, my tears. He had no idea that his grand, dramatic exit was merely a predictable move in a game I'd been quietly preparing for months. As I locked up my boutique for the day, a sense of calm, not panic, settled over me. My name is Claire. I was 38 years old, and while Mark thought he was delivering the most callous goodbye in history, he was actually just setting my meticulously laid plans into motion. His ha-ha would be short-lived. Mark's cowardly text wasn't the thunderbolt from a clear blue sky he probably imagined. The storm had been gathering for months, visible to anyone who cared to look past his increasingly transparent deceptions. The late nights at work that never matched his pay deposits, the sudden secretive password changes on his phone and laptop, these were the early tremors. Then came his almost desperate dive into a new gym routine, the clothes 2 sizes too small, the cringeworthy attempts to recapture a youth rapidly fading in his rearview mirror. He was a walking midlife crisis cliché, and I, his wife, had an unwilling front row seat. The first concrete piece of evidence had landed 3 months prior, a receipt for an intimate dinner for 2 at Serafina's, one of the city's priciest restaurants, on an evening he'd claimed to be buried under paperwork. My name wasn't on that receipt. That night, suspicion solidified into certainty. While he slept, oblivious, I opened a new bank account at a different institution, solely in my name. A week later, when he casually, almost too casually, suggested combining our accounts to simplify things, I agreed with a cheerful smile that hid a steely resolve. The next day, my personal savings, my inheritance from my grandmother, and a significant portion of my boutique's independently earned profits were transferred into that new, secure account. The joint account he just so proudly boasted of emptying, it held just enough to cover our usual household expenses for a couple of months, enough to avoid arousing his suspicion, but a pittance compared to what he thought was there. The bulk of what he considered our money, which was primarily my meticulously managed wealth, was safe. Alongside it in a secure file were detailed records of every questionable transaction, every unexplained withdrawal he'd made over the past year. My phone buzzed again. Another crass message from Mark. "Don't bother begging. Melissa and I leave for Miami tomorrow. I'll send for my things later." Melissa, the new 20-year-old receptionist at his office. I'd met her at the company Christmas party, noted her overly loud laughter at his tired jokes, the way her hand lingered on his arm. Young enough to be his daughter, naive enough to believe his tired narrative of a misunderstood husband seeking a soulmate. She was a pawn in his pathetic game. I didn't reply. Instead, I called my lawyer, The sharp, no-nonsense attorney I'd consulted 2 months earlier, the day I found unexplained hotel charges on our joint credit card. A romantic weekend getaway that hadn't included me. "It's time," I said, my voice firm. He just made his move. "The papers are ready, Claire," she replied. "I'll file them first thing. Served in Miami?" "No rush," I said. Let him savor his delusion a little longer. Mark, meanwhile, continued his textual harassment. "I know this must be hard for you. You're not getting any younger, after all. At least you have your little shop to keep you busy." My little shop. The thriving boutique I'd built from scratch. An enterprise that generated more income than his stagnant middle management job. Its profits legally and entirely separate from our joint finances. A fact he'd always grumbled about but never truly grasped. I smiled, thinking of the legal documents that would soon shatter his Miami dreams. I spent that evening in my house, a beautiful Victorian I'd inherited from my grandmother and kept solely in my name, despite his many attempts to be added to the deed. Another fortunate precaution. While organizing paperwork, I found our wedding album. Mark looked so different then, before the desperation of his midlife crisis had transformed him. His texts continued, each more condescending. "Planning this for months. Melissa understands me. Maybe you'll find someone your own age. Family agrees we grew apart. Nobody's fault." I screenshotted every one, adding them to the evidence folder. My lawyer would appreciate his candid admissions. He was, quite literally, texting himself into a legal corner. The final text from Mark before I shifted my focus was the cherry on top of his arrogant sundae. "BTW, I used the joint card to book our flights and hotel. Consider it my parting gift. LOL." His audacity was truly a gift. To my lawyer. With the calm I barely had to feign, I called the credit card company. "Mrs. Harrison speaking," I said. "I need to report fraudulent charges and cancel a card immediately." I identified the first-class tickets to Miami for Mark Harrison and Melissa Stone, and the luxury hotel charges at the Royal Palm. And, I added, remove Mark Harrison as an authorized user. When asked for documentation, I replied, "I have text messages from my husband admitting he used our joint card for this trip with his girlfriend after emptying our bank account. I'll happily forward them." There was a satisfying pause. Then the representative, her professional tone barely masking a hint of impressed amusement, confirmed the charges would be canceled and Mark removed. Click, click, click went her keyboard, dismantling his fantasy getaway. Mark and Melissa, currently envisioning South Beach, would soon face a harsh reality at the airport check-in counter. My phone buzzed again. Oblivious Mark. "Don't worry about the house. I'll let you stay there until you find something smaller." I laughed. My grandmother's house. Then, "And I know the shop means a lot to you. We can work out a fair payment for your half." My half of my business? The delusion was almost pitiable. I poured a glass of my best Cabernet. This qualified as a special occasion. Tomorrow Mark's education in property law and separate assets would begin. Morning brought the expected barrage of frantic texts. "What the hell did you do to our credit card? Airline won't honor our tickets. Hotel canceled our reservation. Answer me, Claire." I silenced my phone and headed to my boutique. Friday, new designer handbag awaited. Life moves on. Around noon, his mother, Barbara, called. "Claire, dear, Mark told us about how controlling you've been, how you drove him away. He says you're being vindictive, causing problems with his travel." On speakerphone, while arranging a window display, I calmly asked, Barbara, did Mark mention emptying our joint account and charging first-class tickets for him and his 20-year-old girlfriend on our credit card? Silence. Well, he said you left him no choice. Barbara, I interjected gently. I have his texts. The one bragging about taking our money with a ha-ha, the one mocking my age, the one admitting he used our joint card. Another pause. He did seem a bit cruel, she conceded. I told him that text about your age was inappropriate. I appreciate the call, Barbara, but my lawyer has advised minimal contact during the proceedings. Proceedings? Filed this morning, Barbara. Goodbye. The emergency court hearing on Monday was a masterclass in preparedness. Mark arrived in his try-hard, young wardrobe, Melissa nervously hovering outside. My lawyer methodically presented the evidence: Mark's texts, the credit card fraud documentation, his history of hidden expenses, my prenuptial agreement, the house deed solely in my name, the boutique's incorporation papers also solely mine, and the meticulously separated finances. Mark's lawyer blustered about rash decisions and my vindictive, calculating actions. Calculating or prudent, my lawyer countered. My client protected her separate property from a husband engaging in financial misconduct. That's smart. The judge addressed Mark directly. You admitted via text to emptying a joint account and using shared credit cards to fund a trip with your companion. Do you deny this? Mark squirmed. I was just trying to make a clean break. By committing financial fraud, the judge retorted. And now you claim rights to property clearly separate from marital assets? Mark's lawyer feebly mentioned moral support for the business. My lawyer presented Mark's texts, calling my business a little shop and a hobby. The judge had seen enough. The court finds sufficient evidence of financial misconduct. All shared assets frozen. Mr. Harrison is ordered to return funds removed from joint accounts within 24 hours. But that money's gone, Mark cried. Then I suggest you find a way to replace it, the judge stated coldly. His Miami dream had just received its final official cancellation. Leaving the courthouse, I overheard Melissa anxiously questioning Mark about their now-defunct Miami plans. His mumbled response was lost as I walked away. The confident click of my heels on the marble floor, a soundtrack to his defeat. My rebirth was the quiet assertion of strength I'd cultivated in anticipation of this day. Mark's subsequent weeks were a flurry of disparate, futile maneuvers. He tried to claim the boutique was his idea, that he'd invested in it, lies easily disproven by my flawless records. My lawyer relayed his antics with amusement. He's getting desperate. His girlfriend's social media indicates they're in her tiny studio. Living on a receptionist's salary with a broke, unemployed older man isn't the glamorous escape she envisioned. Indeed, Melissa soon started posting about toxic relationships and financial burdens. Mark's family began to reach out, their tone transformed. His sister, Amanda, confessed, "Claire, we had no idea. He played the victim so well. But then we saw his texts, the way he bragged about taking your money. We're appalled." His mother, Barbara, called again, tearfully. "The things he said about you, about your age, I thought I raised him better." I listened politely but kept my distance. Their belated remorse couldn't undo their initial complicity. Ironically, the local gossip about my situation boosted my boutique. Women came in to show support, often making significant purchases. My ex tried similar tactics, one confided while buying a designer handbag. Men like that never expect us to be smarter. Her knowing wink was a shared victory. Mark's texts continued, a pathetic cycle of anger. "You've ruined everything!" Manipulation. "I never meant to hurt you. Can't we work something out?" And delusion. "That business is nothing without my support." Each was duly forwarded to my lawyer, tightening the net of his own making. The grapevine soon buzzed with news of Melissa's departure. The age gap and financial ruin had doused her romantic illusions. My lawyer chuckled. "She removed her in a relationship status this morning." I felt a flicker of something almost like pity, but it vanished when I recalled his ha-ha, his casual cruelty. Instead, pride swelled. Pride in my foresight, my quiet strength, my ability to protect what was mine while he so colossally underestimated me. My comeback wasn't loud. It was the methodical execution of a well-laid plan. The legal machinery, oiled by truth and evidence, did its work efficiently. The boutique, my little shop, became a symbol of this quiet triumph. It was more than a business. It was a testament to my independence, my resilience. While Mark was unraveling, I was expanding, planning, building. His attempts to drag me down had only propelled me higher. His scorn for my business acumen had inadvertently fueled its visibility and success. Each supportive customer, each new achievement was a quiet affirmation. He had intended to leave me with nothing. Instead, he had cleared the path for me to have everything that truly mattered, on my own terms. The narrative he tried to write for me, that of the abandoned, aging wife, was being rapidly overwritten by a story of a savvy, successful businesswoman in complete control of her destiny. The final divorce hearing was a formality, the sealing of Mark's self-inflicted fate. He appeared defeated, his ill-chosen youthful attire replaced by old clothes. Melissa was long gone, having moved on to someone her own age. His lawyer looked exhausted, likely from the fruitless task of defending the indefensible. One last, feeble attempt was made to claim Mark's moral support had contributed to my business's growth. My lawyer, with polite devastation, presented his texts mocking my little shop and hobby. The judge was clearly unimpressed. The settlement was swift and decisive, reflecting my years of careful planning. I retained my house, my thriving business, all my separate assets. Mark was awarded his personal possessions and his car, which was worth less than the outstanding loan. "You've destroyed me," he hissed as we left the courtroom. "I'll have to move back in with my parents." "No, Mark," I replied calmly. "You destroyed yourself. I just ensured you couldn't destroy me in the process." His mother, Barbara, waited outside, her face etched with shame, ready to drive him to his new old home in his childhood bedroom. At 45, the man who'd mocked my age was now dependent on his parents. "You planned this all along," he accused. "No," I corrected. "I just paid attention. And unlike you, I understood the value of good records." Barbara intervened. "That's enough, Mark. You've embarrassed yourself enough." As they walked away, I heard her scolding him. "Honestly, a 20-year-old? Emptying bank accounts? Sending those horrible texts?" I felt only relief. He'd tried to write my ending. Instead, he'd merely triggered my well-prepared beginning. My phone buzzed, not with his texts, but with new orders from my boutique's website. Life was indeed moving forward. 6 months later, my little shop expanded to a second location. While Mark struggled, professionally and personally, my business flourished. His attempts to challenge the settlement were dismissed. his ha-ha text about the joint account becoming a point of legal mockery. A year after the divorce, I opened my third boutique. Mark's betrayal had become a mere footnote to my success. Even Melissa, now a customer, admitted I'd inspired her to build something real, unlike Mark's empty promises. My framed screenshot of his final condescending text, "Have fun with your little shop, at least it'll keep you busy in your old age," hung in my office above my latest business award. That was the true ha-ha. His attempt to diminish me had only magnified my strength and success. He had sought to trade me in and take what I'd built. Instead, he became a cautionary tale, while I became an inspiration. When betrayal knocks, don't let grief be your only companion. Let foresight and strategy be your allies. My husband thought a cruel text and an emptied bank account would dictate my future. He underestimated the quiet power of preparation and the strength of a woman who valued her independence. The most potent response to deceit isn't an emotional breakdown, but the calm execution of a well-laid plan. Protect your assets, trust your instincts, and remember that sometimes the greatest victory is not just surviving their storm, but emerging to build an empire in the sunshine they never believed you deserved.